Girl rescued unloved dog from market. Just watch what the dog does next. In a crowded market, Maya's eyes fell on an abandoned dog, shivering, neglected, and desperate for a second chance. Little did she know, this dog, named Rocky, was no ordinary stray. Rescued from a life of hardship, he would become her protector, her friend, and the key to uncovering a dark secret. But with dangerous forces hunting him, Maya's life would never be the same. As Rocky's past catches up with them, Maya must decide how far she's willing to go to protect the dog who taught her the true meaning of loyalty and love. Maya walked through the crowded market, her eyes scanning the bright stalls filled with colourful fruits and vegetables. The usual noise of chatter, bargaining, and the occasional honking of cars filled the air. It was a lively scene, but something seemed off today. As she passed a particularly busy corner, her gaze fell on an object that didn't belong in the midst of the bustle, a thin, scruffy dog lying abandoned against a dusty wall. The dog's fur was matted and unkempt, its ribs visible through its dirty coat. Its eyes, though tired, still held a spark of life, as if it was waiting for someone to notice. Maya's heart sank. The other people in the market ignored the poor creature, walking past it without a second glance. Maya stopped in her tracks. Something tugged at her. She crouched down slowly, her fingers reaching out toward the dog. It flinched at first, but then looked up at her with eyes full of silent plea. She could feel the weight of its suffering, and without thinking, she whispered, "Don't worry, I'm here now." The vendor beside her noticed Maya's attention on the dog and let out a low sigh. "That one? He's been here for days. No one wants him," the vendor said with a shrug, clearly uninterested in the animal's fate. But Maya couldn't just turn away. Her mind raced as she thought about how she could help this helpless creature. She had never owned a dog before, but she knew she couldn't leave him here in the market. She glanced at the dog once more, his tired eyes meeting hers with an unspoken bond. "I'll take you home," Maya said quietly, more to herself than to the dog. She didn't know how she would manage it, but she had made up her mind. She couldn't bear to leave him like this. The dog needed her. Her apartment was small, and she had little money to spare, but that didn't matter now. The dog was in need, and Maya couldn't ignore it. She looked around for a way to get him to safety. Spotting a nearby taxi, she hurried over, waving her hand. The taxi stopped, and after a brief conversation with the driver, Maya was on her way to the vet, with the dog by her side. The ride to the vet was quiet. The dog, now sitting on Maya's lap, seemed unsure, but calmed by her presence. She gently stroked his head, and his ears perked up slightly at the touch. Maya's heart warmed as she thought about the life this dog must have had. Abandoned, unloved, and forgotten. She had always believed that animals had a way of sensing kindness, and this one seemed to recognize that she was there to help. The vet took one look at the dog and immediately got to work. After a quick checkup, she confirmed that the dog was malnourished and in need of some serious care. "He's lucky you found him," the vet said as she administered a series of shots and vitamins. "With some time and love, he'll make a full recovery." Maya smiled softly, her heart lifting at the thought of what lay ahead. She had a lot of work ahead of her, but she was ready. The dog, whom she had already named Rocky, was about to embark on a new chapter in his life, one filled with care, love, and the promise of a better future. After a few days of visits to the vet, Rocky began to show signs of improvement. His coat, once dull and matted, now had a healthy shine, and he was eating with an appetite. Maya spent every free moment at home sitting on the floor with him, coaxing him into play and showering him with affection. Though Rocky was still wary, he was slowly beginning to trust her. One afternoon, as Maya sat on the couch, Rocky approached her cautiously, his tail wagging just a bit. She smiled and patted her lap. "Come here, buddy," she whispered. To her surprise, Rocky climbed up beside her, settling down and resting his head on her leg. It was a small moment, but it was a breakthrough. Maya knew they were building something special. A week passed, and Maya felt herself growing closer to Rocky every day. She took him for walks around the neighborhood, where he began to explore more, sniffing trees and meeting other dogs, albeit cautiously. One night, as Maya sat by the window, watching the stars, Rocky curled up by her feet. "You know," she whispered, almost to herself, "I never thought a dog would change my life." Rocky looked up at her, his brown eyes warm with a silent understanding. The connection between them was undeniable. He wasn't just a rescued dog. He was a part of her life now, a new chapter in her world. It wasn't long before Maya faced her first real challenge with Rocky. One day, while walking through the park, a large dog came rushing toward them. Rocky froze, his body tense, and then he suddenly barked fiercely, pushing Maya behind him as though protecting her. The large dog backed off, but Rocky was shaking, his fear clear. Maya crouched beside him. "It's okay, Rocky," she murmured, rubbing his back gently. He wasn't as strong as he once had been, and the memory of his past life still haunted him. But Maya was there, and that made all the difference. A few days later, Maya received a phone call from her landlord. "Maya, there's been a complaint from the neighbors. They say your dog is making too much noise." Maya's heart sank. It was hard to balance being a pet owner and living in an apartment with thin walls. She assured him she'd take care of it, but the next few days were filled with tension. Rocky seemed to be struggling with the noise of the city, barking at the smallest sounds. Maya worked with him, trying to calm him and help him adjust, but it was clear that Rocky had deeper anxieties than she had initially realized. One afternoon, Maya took Rocky to a quieter part of the city, a park with fewer people and sounds. She sat down on a bench, hoping that the peaceful environment would help. To her surprise, Rocky settled beside her without a single bark. He lay down, staring up at the sky. For the first time in a while, Maya felt a sense of calm. "You're doing so well, buddy," she whispered. Rocky's eyes met hers, and there was a quiet recognition between them. He was beginning to trust her more every day, and that trust was helping him heal. As the weeks went by, Maya started noticing something strange about Rocky. Every time she brought him to the park or on walks, people would stop and stare. There was something about him that made him stand out. It wasn't just his appearance, though his fluffy coat and expressive eyes drew attention. There was a quiet strength in him that was impossible to ignore. One day, a man in the park asked, "Is that your dog?" Maya nodded, a little confused. "There's something different about him," the man said thoughtfully. "It's like he knows things." Maya didn't know what to make of it, but she began to wonder if Rocky truly was special in some way. Was it possible that his past had shaped him into something more than just a dog? Maya continued to notice unusual things happening around Rocky. One evening, while sitting in her apartment, she heard a faint noise from outside the window. Rocky immediately stood up, growling softly under his breath. Maya looked out the window and saw nothing, but Rocky's alertness struck her. It wasn't just a coincidence. Rocky seemed to sense things before they happened, as if he had a heightened awareness. Maya decided to test it. She placed a small toy at the far end of the apartment and waited to see how Rocky would react. Sure enough, within moments, Rocky trotted over and sat down next to it, as though drawn to it. Maya's heart raced with excitement. What was going on with Rocky? She didn't know yet, but she was about to find out. Maya sat on the couch, her thoughts racing. Ever since she'd noticed Rocky's unusual ability to sense things, she couldn't stop wondering what it meant. Could the dog truly have some kind of sixth sense? It wasn't just the toy that he seemed to know about. It was other things too. Whenever there was a storm approaching, he would become agitated, pacing around the apartment long before the first drop of rain fell. When a delivery man came to the door, Rocky would stand at the window, barking long before the knock. One evening, as a storm rumbled in the distance, Maya watched Rocky intently. His ears twitched as the wind began to pick up, and soon he was pacing restlessly, his eyes darting between the window and Maya. Just as the first flash of lightning lit up the sky, Rocky let out a loud bark. Maya stood up and walked over to him. "It's okay, Rocky," she whispered, her hand reaching out to calm him. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Rocky's past than she realized. Something had happened to him, something that might explain why he could sense the storm before it arrived. She decided to ask the vet more about his history during their next visit. The next day, Maya went back to the vet. She had many questions about Rocky's strange behavior, and she hoped the vet could provide some answers. As she sat in the waiting room, she nervously twiddled her fingers. Her heart beat faster as she thought about what the vet might say. When it was finally her turn, she walked into the exam room with Rocky by her side, his ears perked up as usual. "I've noticed something strange about Rocky," she began, taking a deep breath. "He seems to sense things before they happen. Is that possible? Or am I just imagining it?" Dr. Patel, the vet, looked thoughtful for a moment, stroking his chin. "Well, it's not unheard of for animals to be more sensitive to their surroundings. Some dogs are known to pick up on subtle changes in the environment, changes in air pressure, sounds, or even smells that humans can't detect." Maya listened carefully, nodding. "So, it's possible that his senses are just heightened?" Dr. Patel shrugged. "It's definitely possible. However, I do think there's something more going on here. Rocky's history suggests he had a rough past, and that kind of trauma can often lead to heightened awareness or instincts. I'd recommend some additional tests just to make sure nothing's physically wrong with him." Later that week, Maya brought Rocky in for a series of tests. The vet took blood samples and conducted physical exams, checking for any abnormalities. As they waited for the results, Maya spent the time with Rocky at the park, where he seemed to enjoy the fresh air. But that afternoon, something strange happened. As they sat on a park bench, a group of children began playing nearby. One of them kicked a ball toward Rocky, and as the ball rolled toward him, he leapt to his feet and barked, startling the children. They giggled, but Maya felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It was as if Rocky had anticipated the ball's movement. Maya watched him carefully, confused. He had been so calm earlier, yet now he was acting like he knew what was coming before it happened. Something was definitely different about him. That evening, Maya received a call from the vet. "Maya, we've found something unusual in Rocky's tests," Dr. Patel said. "There's a slight anomaly in his brain patterns. It's not a medical condition, but it could explain some of his heightened sensitivity. It looks like he's been trained or conditioned in some way." Maya's mind raced. "Trained? By whom?" "I don't know," Dr. Patel replied, "but it's something worth investigating." Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Rocky's past than anyone was telling her. She had to find out who had trained him and why. Determined to uncover the truth, she set out to investigate, starting with the shelter where Rocky had been before he ended up in the market. The shelter had very few records of Rocky's history. They only knew that he had been abandoned in poor condition, showing signs of neglect and fear. But there was one thing that caught Maya's attention: the name of the person who had dropped him off. The name was unfamiliar, but the note attached to Rocky's file said something cryptic. "He's not just a dog, he's special." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. What did that mean? Why had someone left a note like that? Determined to get to the bottom of things, Maya searched online for any information related to the person who had left Rocky at the shelter. After days of digging, she stumbled upon a name: Julian Carrington. He was a former animal trainer known for working with special breeds of dogs. However, his career had ended abruptly a few years ago after a scandal involving animal treatment. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Was this the same Julian Carrington who had worked with Rocky? She dug deeper into his past, finding an old interview where he spoke about training dogs with unique abilities. The interview made Maya's stomach turn. Julian had been known to train dogs for high-stakes operations using extreme methods to enhance their senses and instincts. Could Rocky be one of his experiments? Maya thought aloud, her mind racing. Maya was determined to confront Julian Carrington. With her heart pounding in her chest, she tracked down his last known address. It was a run-down property on the edge of town, far from where Maya had expected to find him. When she knocked on the door, a man in his late 40s opened it, his face worn with time. He looked at her with curiosity. "Can I help you?" Maya took a deep breath. "I'm here about Rocky, the dog you left at the shelter." The man's eyes flickered with recognition. He stepped aside and motioned for her to come in. "I suppose it was only a matter of time before someone found me," he said, his voice gravelly. Inside, the room was filled with old dog training equipment and faded photographs of dogs that looked eerily similar to Rocky. Julian sat down across from Maya, his expression hardening. "You want to know the truth about Rocky?" he asked. "He wasn't just any dog. He was part of an experiment, one of many I conducted. We were trying to enhance a dog's natural instincts, to make them more sensitive to the world around them. But something went wrong. Rocky, he wasn't supposed to remember what happened, but he does. He's one of the few who managed to escape the conditioning." Maya's heart pounded. "So he's not just a regular dog? He's been trained to be more than that?" "Yes," Julian replied. "But I regret what happened. I never wanted to hurt them. I was trying to help them, to give them abilities that could save lives. But things spiraled out of control. I left Rocky because he was too unpredictable." Maya stared at Julian, her mind spinning. "And now he's with me." Realizing the danger Rocky had been subjected to, Maya made a decision. She would protect him at all costs. Julian's admission only strengthened her resolve. But as she turned to leave, Julian's voice stopped her. "You can't protect him forever. There are people who will come after him, people who want to use him for what he can do." Maya battles Julian and the people from his past who want to use Rocky's abilities for their own gain. As the story unfolds, Maya and Rocky grow even closer, forming an unbreakable bond. The story reaches its peak when Rocky uses his extraordinary abilities to help save Maya from an imminent threat, proving his worth and loyalty to her. The final chapters focus on Maya's determination to give Rocky a normal, loving life, free from the cruel past that tried to define him. Maya couldn't stop thinking about the revelation Julian had made. Rocky was no ordinary dog. He had been subjected to a series of tests and experiments, all designed to enhance his senses and instincts. As if that wasn't enough, now she was faced with the terrifying realization that there were people who would stop at nothing to take him back. But no matter what, Maya knew she couldn't let that happen. Rocky had been through enough suffering, and now he had a chance at a new life, a life filled with love and care. She couldn't let his past define him. In the days that followed, Maya made a promise to herself. She would do everything in her power to protect Rocky from the dangers that loomed over him. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way, but they would do so on their own terms. Maya didn't expect to hear from Julian again, but just days after their confrontation, she received a strange, cryptic phone call. The voice on the other end was low, almost unrecognizable. "Stay away from him, Maya," the voice warned. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Her heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" she demanded. The voice didn't answer. Instead, a cold laugh echoed through the line. Maya slammed the phone down, her mind racing. Who was this person, and why did they know so much about Rocky? Her thoughts were interrupted by Rocky, who came trotting into the room, sensing her distress. He sat beside her, his head tilting as if asking, "What's wrong?" Maya sighed and stroked his head. "I'll protect you, Rocky. I promise." It didn't take long before Maya noticed that she wasn't the only one keeping an eye on Rocky. Over the next few days, she began to notice strange cars parked near her apartment and unfamiliar figures lurking around the neighborhood. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then one afternoon, a man approached her while she was walking Rocky in the park. "Nice dog you've got there," the man said, smiling. But his eyes were cold, calculating. He gave her an unsettling feeling, and she instinctively stepped closer to Rocky. "Do I know you?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The man's smile faded. "Not yet, but you will." With that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Maya's heart raced. Who was he, and why was he so interested in Rocky? Maya knew it was only a matter of time before someone made an attempt to take Rocky. That day came sooner than she expected. One evening, after she and Rocky had returned home from their usual walk, a group of men suddenly appeared at her door. They were unmarked and wore dark clothes that hid their identities. "We need the dog," one of them said in a rough voice, stepping closer. Maya stepped in front of Rocky, her heart pounding. "You're not taking him," she said firmly. The men laughed. "You have no choice," the leader said, his voice cold. "We've been watching you. We know what he can do." Without thinking, Maya grabbed a nearby broom and stood her ground. "I'll fight you if I have to," she said, shaking. For a moment, the men hesitated, as though unsure how to respond to her defiance. But then, to their surprise, Rocky began to growl, his body tense with protective instinct. "I won't let anyone hurt her," he seemed to say with his eyes. Just as one of the men lunged toward Maya, Rocky sprang into action. With a burst of energy, he lunged at the man's leg, causing him to stumble back. The other men were taken aback by Rocky's sudden aggression. For the first time since he had entered Maya's life, Rocky fully unleashed the abilities he had been trained for. His instincts were razor-sharp, and he moved with agility and precision, blocking the men's every attempt to approach Maya. The men backed off, clearly unprepared for a dog that could fight back with such force. "Maya, we can't take him by force," the leader said, backing away. "But we'll be back." Maya's heart was still racing, but she knew she had just witnessed something extraordinary. "You won't get him," she said firmly. As the men retreated into the shadows, Rocky returned to Maya's side, his posture calm once more. Maya petted him gently. "You're amazing, Rocky," she whispered. Maya knew this was only the beginning. The men who had tried to take Rocky were only a small part of a much larger organization that was determined to reclaim him. They would stop at nothing to use him for their own purposes, and Maya had to be ready for whatever came next. But she wasn't alone in this fight. Rocky had shown her that he wasn't just any dog. He was a partner, a protector, and a friend. Together, they would face whatever danger lay ahead. Maya decided it was time to leave her apartment. It was no longer safe for her and Rocky. She contacted a trusted friend, Lucy, who lived in a secluded cabin in the countryside. Lucy had always been an animal lover, and Maya knew she would understand. Packing up her belongings and taking Rocky with her, Maya left the city behind, heading for the quiet retreat where they could regroup and plan their next move. The cabin was surrounded by trees, and Maya could sense the peace of the place. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where she and Rocky could rest and heal. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt a small sense of relief. While staying at the cabin, Maya and Rocky grew closer than ever. But their quiet life was interrupted when Lucy came to visit, bringing troubling news. "Maya, I think you need to know something," she said, her face grim. "I've been hearing rumors about an organization that's been kidnapping dogs. They're training them for illegal activities, things like smuggling and illegal operations. They're after Rocky." Maya's heart sank. "That's what I was afraid of." Lucy nodded. "They have eyes everywhere. They've been searching for him ever since he escaped." Maya knew they couldn't stay in hiding forever. It was time to fight back. But she had to be strategic. Over the next few weeks, Maya trained Rocky. She taught him to harness his abilities, working on his agility, stealth, and instincts. They were preparing for whatever challenge lay ahead. Meanwhile, Maya began researching the organization that had targeted Rocky. She learned that they were known as the Syndicate, a dangerous network involved in illegal operations across the country. They had a reputation for cruelty and manipulation, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim their asset. Maya knew the time for hiding was over. It was time to take the fight to the Syndicate. One night, while Maya and Rocky were on a midnight walk through the woods near Lucy's cabin, they were ambushed. A group of masked men appeared from the darkness, surrounding them. You didn't think you could hide forever, did you? One of the men sneered, his voice cold. Rocky growled, sensing the danger before Maya could react. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, his body moving with precision. Maya was ready too. She grabbed a nearby stick and swung it at one of the attackers. The men were taken off guard by their combined strength. Rocky's agility and Maya's determination overwhelmed the attackers, forcing them to retreat into the night. The final showdown came when the syndicate tracked them down to the cabin. Maya, knowing this would be their last stand, made sure she and Rocky were ready. The fight was intense. Rocky faced off against trained operatives, using every skill he had learned. Maya was quick on her feet, evading attacks and protecting Rocky at every turn. In the end, the head of the syndicate, a man who had once trained dogs just like Rocky, fell to the ground, defeated. Rocky stood beside Maya, his chest heaving with exhaustion, but his eyes filled with loyalty. With the syndicate dismantled and their influence gone, Maya and Rocky finally found peace. They returned to the city, where Rocky became a symbol of resilience and hope for abandoned animals. Maya dedicated her life to helping animals, ensuring that no one else would have to endure the pain that Rocky had faced. Maya had become a voice for the voiceless. With Rocky at her side, she founded a rescue organization dedicated to helping abused and abandoned dogs. It wasn't just about giving them a place to stay. It was about showing them what it felt like to be loved, cared for, and wanted. The organization was gaining momentum. Every day, more dogs were being saved from difficult situations, from streets filled with danger to shelters where they faced uncertain futures. Maya's heart swelled with pride as she watched Rocky interact with the dogs. His understanding of what it meant to be rescued wasn't lost on him, and he seemed to know just how to help the new arrivals adjust. But despite the progress they were making, Maya knew there was still more to be done. There were still so many animals in need, and the syndicate was not the only threat lurking in the shadows. She had a long road ahead, but this was a fight she was determined to win, for Rocky and for every dog out there who needed a second chance. One afternoon, while Maya was at the rescue center, a familiar face appeared at the door. It was Lucy, her trusted friend, and she was holding something in her arms. A small, trembling dog that seemed terrified of the world around her. "Maya, I found her," Lucy said, her voice soft. "She was abandoned in a box on the side of the road. She needs help." Maya looked down at the fragile dog, her heart aching. She could see the fear in the dog's eyes, fear she recognized all too well. "She's just a puppy," Maya murmured. "We'll take care of her." Rocky, who had been sitting by Maya's side, approached the puppy cautiously. At first, the puppy cowered, unsure of the world she'd been brought into. But Rocky, with his gentle and understanding nature, lowered his body to the ground and lay next to her. It was as if he was offering her comfort, showing her that it was okay to trust again. The puppy, whom Maya named Bella, took a little while to adjust to her new life at the rescue. She was scared, skittish, and hesitant around other animals, including Rocky. But day by day, Maya worked with Bella, slowly gaining her trust. Rocky was always there, sitting beside Bella during her sessions, offering silent support and companionship. Over time, Bella's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She began to grow stronger, her once timid nature now replaced by curiosity and a growing sense of security. The other dogs at the center looked up to Rocky, and Bella, too, began to follow his example. Maya couldn't help but smile as she watched Rocky and Bella play together in the yard. It was moments like these that made all the struggles and challenges worth it. She had created a safe space, a haven for these dogs who had been through so much, just like Rocky had. As the months passed, the rescue center grew. More dogs came in, each with their own story of hardship, but also with the possibility of healing. Maya expanded her team, hiring a few volunteers who shared her passion for helping animals. Together, they worked tirelessly to ensure that every dog received the care and attention they deserved. Rocky, now a seasoned protector, became the heart of the rescue. He had earned the respect of the other dogs, and he worked alongside Maya to teach the new arrivals how to trust again. It was clear that his experiences had shaped him into a wise, patient leader. As Maya watched Rocky guide the dogs, she thought back to the moment she had found him in the market. She never would have imagined that their journey together would lead to something so beautiful. They had built a family, one that was made not of blood, but of love and loyalty. One day, as Maya walked through the rescue center, a couple approached her. They had heard about her work and had come to adopt a dog. Maya led them through the center, showing them the different animals. As they walked past Rocky, the couple paused. "There's something about him," the woman said, smiling. "He's so calm. We'd love to adopt him." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She knew this day would come, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of Rocky. He had been by her side through every moment of pain, fear, and triumph. But she also knew that Rocky had changed so many lives, and now it was time for him to help heal someone else. With a heavy heart, Maya smiled at the couple. "I think he's ready for a new chapter in his life," she said softly. "He'll make a wonderful companion." The day that Rocky left the rescue center was one of the hardest days of Maya's life. She knew it was for the best, but the thought of him not being by her side was hard to accept. Rocky had become more than just a dog to her. He was family. When the couple arrived to pick him up, Maya could see the bond forming between them. The woman knelt down to Rocky's level, and he immediately walked up to her, his tail wagging. She stroked his fur, and Rocky leaned into her touch, as if he knew this was the next step in his journey. "Take care of him," Maya whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "He's special." The couple promised they would, and with one last glance at Maya, Rocky followed them out the door, his head held high. Though it was difficult to say goodbye, Maya found solace in knowing that Rocky would have a life filled with love and happiness. He had gone from being a neglected dog in a market to being the heart of a family. His journey wasn't just about survival. It was about finding love and giving it back. Maya continued her work at the rescue center, inspired by Rocky's legacy. Every dog that came through the doors was given the chance to experience the same transformation Rocky had gone through. And she knew, as she watched the other dogs find their forever homes, that Rocky's spirit would live on in each of them. Years passed, and Maya's rescue center became a well-known sanctuary for abandoned and abused animals. She had helped hundreds of dogs find their forever homes, and with every adoption, she saw the same transformation that she had witnessed in Rocky. The healing power of love was undeniable. One afternoon, as she sat in the center, looking over the dogs, a young woman walked in with her adopted dog in tow. The dog, a large, confident animal, stood tall beside her. Maya did a double take. There was something so familiar about the dog. "His name is Max," the woman said, smiling. "He's been through so much, but I think he's finally home." Maya looked at the dog more closely. Max, she thought. He looked like a younger version of Rocky, strong, loyal, and full of love. The woman must have sensed her thoughts. "He reminds me of someone," Maya whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "Rocky?" the woman asked, her eyes brightening. "I read about him in your story. He helped me believe that my dog could change too." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. Rocky's legacy lives on, she thought, knowing that his story had inspired so many others. As the sun set over the rescue center, Maya stood outside, looking out at the peaceful horizon. Rocky's journey had been long and challenging, but it had led to something beautiful. Through their struggles, they had created a sanctuary for those who needed love the most. Maya felt a presence beside her and turned to see a familiar face. Rocky. Of course, it wasn't the same Rocky she had once known, but the spirit of him was there in every dog that had been touched by his story, in every dog that had been given a second chance. Rocky had taught her something she would carry with her forever, that no matter how broken or abandoned someone feels, there is always hope. There is always the chance for a new beginning. And with that, Maya knew her work wasn't over. As long as there were animals in need, she would keep fighting, just as Rocky had fought for his own freedom and for hers.